The Miami Dolphins releasing Tua Tagovailoa after 6 seasons marks the end of one of the most complicated quarterback chapters the franchise has experienced in decades. On paper, the decision may look like a standard roster move, a team choosing to go in a new direction. But the reality behind it is far more layered. This moment reflects years of expectations, flashes of brilliance, injuries, organizational shifts, and ultimately a franchise deciding it must reset at the most important position in football. When the Dolphins selected Tua Tagovailoa with the 5th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the expectations were enormous. Tua entered the league with one of the most decorated college careers in recent memory. At Alabama, he had been a national champion, a Heisman finalist, and the quarterback behind one of the most explosive offenses college football had ever seen. His accuracy, anticipation, and ability to throw receivers open made him one of the most exciting quarterback prospects of the decade. Yet even before his NFL career began, there were questions. The hip injury he suffered late in his Alabama career was one of the most severe injuries a quarterback prospect had faced in years. Some teams wondered whether he would ever regain the same mobility and durability. The Dolphins, however, believed his talent was worth the risk. From the moment he arrived in Miami, the situation around Tua was never simple. His rookie season in 2020 was unusual from the start. The Dolphins already had veteran quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick on the roster, and head coach Brian Flores initially leaned on Fitzpatrick's experience. When Tua eventually took over as the starter midway through the season, the transition felt awkward at times. The offense was conservative, the protection inconsistent, and the coaching staff often appeared hesitant to fully build the system around their rookie quarterback. Despite those challenges, Tua showed glimpses of what made him special. His quick release and accuracy on short and intermediate throws were evident. But the overall offensive structure never truly allowed him to fully flourish during those early seasons. The real turning point in Tua's career came in 2022 when the Dolphins hired head coach Mike McDaniel. McDaniel's offensive philosophy was built around speed, timing, and play design, concepts that perfectly matched Tua's strengths. With the additions of Tyreek Hill and the continued development of Jalen Waddle, Miami suddenly had one of the fastest receiving duos in the entire NFL. For a stretch during that season, Tua looked like one of the most efficient quarterbacks in football. The offense exploded with big plays. Deep crossing routes, timing-based vertical throws, and quick reads allowed Tua to distribute the ball rapidly and decisively. At one point in 2022, he led the league in passer rating and yards per attempt. The Dolphins' offense became one of the most entertaining units in the league. But alongside the success came a problem that would ultimately define much of Tua's career: injuries. Concussions became a major concern during the 2022 season. Several frightening incidents sparked league-wide conversations about player safety and concussion protocols. For Tua personally, those moments became a cloud that followed him into every subsequent season. Even when he played well, the question of durability was always present. To his credit, Tua worked relentlessly to change that narrative. He focused on strengthening his body, learning techniques to absorb hits more safely, and improving his conditioning. There were stretches where it seemed like he had turned a corner physically. When healthy, he consistently delivered high-level performances in Miami's offensive system. Yet, the Dolphins organization had to make a long-term evaluation. Quarterback decisions are never made based on talent alone. Durability, financial commitments, roster flexibility, and long-term ceiling all play enormous roles. After 6 seasons, the Dolphins front office apparently reached the conclusion that the team needed a different direction. The fact that the move comes with a post-June War designation is particularly important. In NFL contract mechanics, this allows the team to spread the financial impact of the release across multiple seasons rather than absorbing the entire cap hit immediately. In other words, the Dolphins clearly planned this decision with long-term financial strategy in mind. That alone suggests this was not a sudden move. Franchise-altering quarterback decisions are typically months, sometimes years in the making. The Dolphins likely evaluated multiple scenarios: extending Tua, restructuring his deal, bringing in competition, or starting over completely. Ultimately, they chose the most dramatic option, a full reset. General Manager John Sullivan's statement reflected the delicate nature of the decision. His words emphasized respect for Tua as both a person and a player. Around the league, Tagovailoa has long been regarded as a high-character leader. Teammates consistently praised his humility, work ethic, and willingness to take accountability. That makes the move even more emotionally complicated. Releasing a player who failed to meet expectations is one thing. Moving on from someone widely respected inside the locker room is another. For Dolphins players who built relationships with Tua over 6 seasons, this decision likely feels personal. From a purely football perspective, however, the Dolphins appear determined to reshape the identity of the team. Sullivan's comment about infusing competition across the roster hints at a broader philosophy shift. Rather than building the entire offense around one quarterback's strengths, Miami may be preparing to open the position to competition, possibly through free agency, the draft, or both. This approach can sometimes signal that a team believes its roster foundation is strong enough that multiple quarterbacks could potentially succeed within it. The Dolphins still possess elite speed at the receiver position, a creative offensive coaching staff, and a defensive unit that has shown flashes of dominance. The question now becomes what direction they choose next. The NFL quarterback market is constantly evolving. Veteran quarterbacks become available through trades or cap-related cuts every offseason. Meanwhile, the draft always offers the allure of finding the next franchise star. Miami now has the flexibility to explore both paths. For Tua Tagovailoa himself, the story is far from over. Quarterbacks often find new life after leaving the team that drafted them. In fact, NFL history is full of examples of players who flourished after a fresh start. Sometimes a new coaching system unlocks abilities that were never fully utilized before. Other times, a different organizational culture helps a player regain confidence. Tua still possesses the same core traits that once made him a top 5 draft pick. His accuracy remains elite. His anticipation and timing are still among the best in the league when he's operating in a rhythm-based system. Teams that emphasize quick passing concepts and structured reads could view him as a valuable addition. The biggest factor will continue to be health. If Tua can stay on the field consistently, he remains capable of leading an efficient, high-scoring offense. But if injuries continue to interrupt his availability, teams will naturally hesitate to build around him long-term. In many ways, this moment represents a crossroads for both sides. For the Dolphins, it's a chance to redefine the trajectory of the franchise. Moving on from a starting quarterback always carries enormous risk. If their next option fails, the organization could face years of instability at the position. But if they successfully identify the right successor, this decision could become the turning point that elevates the team into consistent championship contention. For Tua, the opportunity now becomes proving that Miami's decision was premature. Quarterbacks who are released often carry a unique form of motivation. Being told a team is moving in a different direction can fuel players to show that their best football is still ahead. If Tagovailoa lands in the right environment, his next chapter could become one of redemption. 6 years with one franchise inevitably create lasting memories. There were thrilling offensive explosions where Miami's speed overwhelmed defenses. There were comeback drives that energized the fan base. There were also frustrating moments when injuries halted momentum just as the team seemed ready to take the next step. That combination of excitement and uncertainty ultimately defined Tua Tagovailoa's Dolphins tenure. Now, both sides move forward separately. The Dolphins begin a search for the next quarterback who can lead the franchise into a new era. And somewhere else in the league, Tua Tagovailoa will begin writing the next chapter of his career, determined to show that his story in the NFL is far from finished.